Rogue Record.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to Hustle Makes It Happen, a podcast about the grit, the determination, and the mindset that it takes to become a winner. Success is not an accident. It lives outside your comfort zone, in the trenches, where excuses are met by brick walls. So strap in, tighten up, and let's get ready to hustle. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast. Look, before we get started in the show, you guys know the routine. If you're going to help us grow, you have to share the show. The only way we're going to be able to get the word out and to motivate as many people as we can is with your help. So we need you to hit the share button on all of our content, all of our episodes. Tell your friends by word of mouth, share them on your social, do whatever. Just talk about the show. People are always looking for good content to consume. We're going to try to continue to put that out for you, but we need your help. If you're going to help us grow, you have to share the show. So that's it. Look, guys, today we have Mr. Jim Chapman. Jim, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Look, Jim, so it's not often in life whenever you're out grinding and trying to put things together and make things work that you find somebody that works as hard or harder than you do. And I think whenever you find those people, it's important to hold on to them. For those of you that don't know Jim Chapman, our first episode with Jim was actually on Jim's podcast, Local Leaders, where we came on and we talked about our own business. And then through some conversations before and after that podcast, we realized not only was Jim doing an awesome service to his community by publishing and producing Local Leaders, the podcast, but we realized that this guy puts in some serious work. So Jim produces our podcast, produces his own podcast. He produces the #1 true crime podcast in the world with Real Life, Real Crime with Woody Overton. And just producing all these podcasts is a lot, but you take it a step further than that and go into like the full-blown media empire that you're trying to build. And to be able to maintain all that with you and the little small team that you have is really impressive. So, I kind of just stole a whole lot of your thunder. But tell us.
Hey, I'm loving to listen right now.
Yeah. It's always cool when somebody's talking about you, right?
Yeah. It's different being on this side. I kind of like this.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Jim. Tell our listeners and viewers about yourself.
Well, for those that may not be familiar, I was a salesperson for a paint company for 25 years and saw a lot of success with that. We were in the paint coatings industry. So I went in a lot of industrial plants. I went in a lot of new residential homes and cold called on these guys. I sold a family-owned product for those 25 years and was really proud to do it. What I liked about it most was the fact that it was family-owned, and that was something to me that kind of spurred my entire attitude towards supporting local business. I competed against large corporations often, and so my issue was, how do I get my name out there to where people realize how good, in my case, that paint was? And that's kind of how I learned how to market a product, no matter what it was. In my case, it was paint, but I kind of developed a system on how to market it. And one thing I learned was it's better to kind of sell yourself first and your product second, because if they never buy into you, the product becomes very secondary to that. In other words, everybody has a good paint, for example. Everybody has one that's good, excuse me. But what separates your paint from their paint? Well, a lot of times it's the person selling it. And so that's what I kind of lived that life doing and had a successful 25-year career. I was very blessed.
And you got, so you're 47, 3 kids, married for 24 years.
Yeah.
So your family's been along for the ride the whole time.
Boy, they sure have.
What do
That's why I ain't got no hair. Those 3 kids will wear you out.
Yeah.
But yes, they've been along the whole time. And look, I'm, you kind of talked about this at the beginning of the episode, but I'm different in the way that I hustle. And there's, it's just a different type of attitude, and y'all can relate to that. Because of that, you have to be kind of married to someone that gets it. And it took my wife a long time to get it. But eventually she realized that that was kind of the way I was built. You know, I used to say that all the time. I'm just kind of built this way. I'm not a couch guy.
Man, I don't think that we've went down that avenue, and I think all the wives on the other side of this table that aren't here today can probably maybe get that. That might strike a chord with that as well, is that when you're wired like this, when you just constantly go and dig and find that next gear and what's the next avenue, what am I grabbing next, they go through that emotional roller coaster with you on a constant basis. So having someone in your corner supporting you, I think when you're wired like this, is a must.
It really is. It's you know, I'll give you a quick little story. Many years ago, we used to have, me and my wife, that conversation often, because the hardest thing for people that are hustlers, and I mean true hustlers, you know, they're out there, they're getting it, and that's just kind of where their mindset is at all times, is finding balance, right? Balance is very important in a marriage, in a family, in a business, and it's something that I've always struggled with. A lot of people will take that as choosing one thing over another, or and it's, so you really have to have that spouse that gets it. That, you know, my wife still, you know, complains sometimes, but she gets it, and she knows that's me, and she knows where my heart is, and she knows I'm doing all that for my family.
Yeah, so you've got a lot. I don't want to say a lot more because I don't want to call you old intentionally, but you've got more experience with this. So you've been married for 24 years. I've been married for 4 years, right?
Yeah.
4 years ago, before my wife and I got married, and it was just me, it was very easy, right? It was very easy to kind of do whatever I needed to do, focus on whatever I needed to focus on, because the only person I had to deconflict with was myself. We got married in 2018, and since then it's been me, and now I need to focus on her too, right? So all the hustle stuff that I got going on, that still needs attention, but now she needs some attention. And then in 2020, my son was born, and that threw a whole nother, you know, piece of material into the ball game. Then now I got to focus on him as well. And it is a struggle. It's a struggle, and finding that balance, I think, just takes a little bit of time for a lot of us, but it's super important. And I think this is a good point. I'm glad you brought it up, because I know we're not the only people with these issues. And I want to highlight how important it is for not only for your marriage, but really for your mental well-being, to be able to strike that balance. Like you gotta understand that the hustle is super important. I mean, that's the lifeblood of everything you're doing, but without that balance, you're going to sacrifice your family. And one of our previous, guest, Mr. Justin King, talked about that in his episode, where he talked about staying so focused on the grind that he was sacrificing time with his family, and how that affected him. So you really have to be able to strike that balance.
Yeah, you do. And I'll tell you, I wasn't always a hustler. Before my son was born, you know, I was 25% of the hustle I have now. Now I still got, you know, mine or whatever, but it was not to this level. When my wife and I found out my wife was pregnant, before that, obviously it was just me and her, and I was probably pretty selfish. And I'll tell you what, when my son popped out, or whatever you want to say, it was like overnight, I totally changed. And I remember, man, I can go back to that day and remember being in that hospital and thinking, now it's time to get serious. And from that day forward,
it sounds so
I
cliche,
was a hustler.
But it's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't believe it.
Yeah. People could say it all the time. My life changed. But it really is true when your gears change, the way that you think has changed, because that little person is fully 100% dependent on you.
Because I got something to look forward to.
Every way.
The best way to put it is, my son brought out the best in me. And then my daughters behind my son brought out even more in me as far as my hustle was concerned.
Right.
And I started hustling, 18 years ago or 19 years ago when my son was born, and I ain't stopped since.
Yeah, I think you gotta once you start having kids, you gotta. I think if you're like already hustle mindset oriented, it just changes, right? You're not doing it for you anymore. You're doing it, and at least in my case, I'm doing it for him. You know what I
Yes,
mean? I'm doing
right.
it for
They're like a magnifier.
yeah.
They magnify it. Just they really hone in on some of those traits that maybe they've laid dormant inside of you. They come out and it's like, oh yeah, I got to get this going. I got to dig in.
Yes, and it's important to mention that, my wife's a hustler. Look, my wife works full time, comes home, and when I'm doing my thing, she's out there with the kids, running them back and forth to band practice. Helping my son do his college stuff, and I mean, she runs like crazy. She might hustle harder than me, in all honesty. It's just a different hustle.
Right.
And so it's important to have that person that balances that. When you're a hustler and you have kids, in all likelihood, your wife's just as much a hustler.
That's right.
It's just in a different way. And so you got to have that to make sure that your kids grow up learning that. One thing I've always told my family is look, they're going to learn that hard work from me. Right. They're going to see that every day, but it's why we've been blessed to enjoy the life we have too.
So when you're not hustling, what are you doing? What are the hobbies? do you have any?
You have time
I do.
for 'em?
I mean, I have things. I love listening. And me and my wife both love listening to live bands, especially when they're good. That helps. So we like hearing different bands. We don't really have a certain genre of music we listen to any more than another. I like 80s music, 90s music. I like country. Rap every now and then. It just depends on my mood, but we like doing that. I love football games, LSU football. Of course, we're South Louisiana. I like getting together with friends and crawfish boiling and getting together for games and, or just hanging out. Outside of that, I like to play golf. I just don't do a whole lot of it. Golf is something that's really fun, but takes a whole day to do.
That's right.
So the whole time I'm on the golf course, I'm hurrying up and hitting because I got to get back to my hustle at some point.
So talking about a little bit about the music, just a little hook real quick. If you are jamming out to Lil Wayne in your car, I need a little YouTube video of that.
TikTok.
You might hear some Eminem too in there.
I need some TikTok of that, please.
That's it.
Let's talk about some of the accomplishments that you've had, because we touched on your career between your salesman background and then now in the podcast world.
Yeah. So as I said earlier, I was very blessed. I had a territory I built here that I was very proud of. And a lot of these folks, when I was selling paint, were friends. They were people I formed relationships with, which is really the best way to sell anything, is to form a legit relationship with whoever you're doing business with. And so over those 25 years, I was very fortunate. I was sales rep of the year one year. Many years of most new accounts, we would track that. So every year the guy with the most new accounts would get plaques and things like I've got 4 or 5 of them hanging in my office. So I was very blessed in that world. People might wonder, wow, you had so much success selling paint and you loved it. And so why are you doing, all this producing and podcasting stuff? And sometimes it's kind of hard for me to answer, except for it was just like I felt like a calling for me. I was doing it as a side hustle, just something I enjoyed doing. It wasn't for money. I wasn't making any money doing it. Matter of fact, I was spending money doing it because I had someone engineering, producing my show early on. Shout out to McKee David at the Livingston Parish News. But I would have guests in, and it was just something where I felt very comfortable and I felt like it was going places. I was very fortunate to start seeing success with it. And people kept telling me, they would message me and say, don't quit doing this. We love it. And there came a point, I started falling in love with one thing and falling out of love with another thing. And I'm not one of these guys that can just give 25% here, 25% there. If I'm doing something, I want to be all in, and it just kept eating at me. And I'm like, man, this is the dumbest decision I can make on paper, because I'm making good money where I was. I had success. My territory was practically running itself, and I'm about to walk away from all that just off of my heart feeling like this is where it needs to be, and I did. And I can tell you, it's probably the best decision I ever made in my life. And I was scared to death, man. I really was. I had money in the bank, but I was scared to death because it was out of my comfort zone.
It was a safe space forever.
Yes. It was a safe space forever, and it was reliable, and I knew they weren't going anywhere. And I had to make a decision. And it was really the first time in my life at 40, I was 46 at that time. It was the first time in my life that I just stepped right off a cliff. And I'll tell you what spurred that. This will blow your mind, because I don't think I've ever told anybody this. I had a guy that was like a mentor to me. His name was Frank Gibbons, and he was a district manager for Farrell Calhoun. And he was in the business way longer than I was. He was 40 years in the paint business. But great shape, tennis player, awesome guy, kind of a mentor. And a month before I made this decision, he died. And he literally had, I think it was prostate cancer or something, some sort of cancer you couldn't cure. And it had a high death rate. And I remember one day he came into work. He said, they say I have this type of cancer. And I said, what? And I had no idea about it. I Googled it. And I'm like, oh, my gosh, this is like a month death sentence. And that was the last time I saw him. He didn't want people to see him because he was really vain with his hair. He used to tease him because he'd brush it every day in his car. Had great hair. And he had to get chemo, and his hair fell out, and he wouldn't let people see him. But he passed away within a month. And I remember thinking, man, I was like, if I don't make this decision now, I'll probably never make it. And if I never make it, I don't want to be 67 years old like Frank was and have never tried it, whatever it was. And that did it. That made my mind up for me right there.
Wow.
That's you were being cognizant of something that you didn't even know was happening in yourself and with him, and you're kind of living through his story as well of not taking that leap. And there's a lot there, man. I loved hearing that story and that part of it, of why you took it.
I don't know if I would have if he wouldn't have passed. Right. I don't know if I would have, because you always think we see death around us, and that people don't live forever. But when it hits in the same business you're in, right there at home, at a guy you've worked with every day for years and years and years, that decision becomes a little more pertinent.
Yeah, it's a ripple effect.
Yeah. Yep.
Your traits that I feel that you had in the sales business, you just said learning your customers and making it personal and getting to know your clients. That's what you're doing here, but you're telling the story now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, exactly. I think that people don't get opportunities to tell, their story of hustle, I guess you could say, or their story of their business, and they don't get the opportunity, and sometimes the best lessons can come out of that. And if they don't have a platform to put it out there, look, most people aren't dying to talk about themselves. They almost get awkward about it. But if other people knew their story of business, it may spark that person to open their own business. All of us in this room are business owners. Coming from a company that I worked for and never really owned my own business per se, I didn't realize how good that is. I mean, it is an amazing thing, and some people just need that extra motivation to do it. And so my show was built around that catalyst. It was built around, I'm going to give you a roadmap through someone else's eyes, And maybe if you're someone that's hinging on should I or should I not, this would be the thing that you need.
Right. So whenever you started, you left Farrell Calhoun, you had this widely successful paint slinging business, and you go to Slinging Podcast instead, right?
Right.
Now you're on your own. You gotta define what your own success looks like in your business.
Yes.
And then you have to define how you're going to get there. Mm-hmm. Then you have to go get there, right? It's all dependent on you at this point. So you talk about setting goals. You talk about working hard. You specifically mentioned that you always try to be the hardest worker in the room. Mm-hmm. How important is that? Like, why is that so important to you?
Well, the first thing people would think is, well, yeah, you got to work hard to see success. But for me, it's a totally different mentality. I always want to be the hardest worker in the room because I'm not the smartest. I always want to be the hardest worker in the room because maybe, when I was a kid or something, I was told I couldn't be. I was told I would be limited. Throughout your life, sometimes people don't have the foresight to believe anything's possible. And so you get told things, even in business, even at the paint company I used to work for, I was told there's certain accounts we can't get. I can honestly tell you that is something that I 100% don't believe, something that time and time again, I've personally, and I know many people out there that have proved people wrong in that way. There's nothing in life you can't do if you really believe in yourself and you believe in the product, whatever it is that you're selling. And so I think hardest worker in the room also equates to that because I felt like I had a chip on my shoulder, like I always had something to prove to somebody. And I still have that now. Always I will have that.
It's so funny that you mentioned that, and I don't think I realized it in myself until you just said it. Like it is a chip that just kind of hangs out on your shoulder where I'm trying to like conceptualize exactly how I want to phrase this because it just came in my head. But a lot of times, like when somebody says something's going to be very difficult or you can't do something, I don't think for me, it's not I have to prove you wrong, but like I want to find a way. Like I always want to find a way to make something happen. And we talked about, I know Chase and I for sure have talked about whenever you meet obstacles, you just got to hit it and hit it and hit it until you figure it out. And I think that's that, like, I don't want to be wrong or I don't want other people to see me be wrong. I'm not sure what it is, but I think that's a mindset that a lot of people probably share.
Yeah, this is this part of the interview right now, and what's being said is striking a chord with me in a lot of different ways. Just because, for me personally, just listening to Jim too, and we've dived into it a little bit. If you looked at friends or old acquaintances coming right out of high school, for me, you would have, they would have said, and I had someone really close to me in my life that was a relative of some sort out of high school that said, you aren't going to amount to shit. Mm. And today I'll tell you, fuck you, check it out now.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
And that's that chip, it still sits there in a heavy way, but it motivates the hell out of me. And I love bringing that out of people to know that, like, use that motivation. Don't let it bury you. Yeah, I hung on to it, and I still today. It doesn't like live inside of me where I harbor it, and it's like it fuels anything bad, like negativity. But it has spurred me to dig in and find that extra gear. Like watch what I can do in life. Like
that's right.
Because like you said, I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I wasn't. God didn't give me all the talent, but man, I will work my ass off.
Yeah, that's right. And look. I'll tell you, I do use those things as motivation. I could still recall points in my life where, I was doubted, and you can take that two ways. What you just said, and this is important for any listeners out there. If someone tells you you ain't shit, you can take that two ways. You can take that to heart and you can cower to that and you can believe it and choose to believe that, or you can use it as fire. You can use it as fuel. You can burn it. I guess I just chose to use it as fuel, and I wasn't going to let that break me. And to this very day, every time, and it may be kind of sick, I don't know, but every time that I accomplish something that people would think is impossible to accomplish or whatever, that's the first thing that runs through my mind is, you thought I couldn't do it, and I did it. And I don't know, man, it may be, maybe a psychiatrist would sit here and say, I got to let that go.
Yeah, you gotta get off
But,
of that.
I'm not going to let it go because I use it as fuel.
Yeah, it's a motivator. And look, people are motivated by different things. And I think different personality types are motivated by different things. And for a lot of us, for me, for you, probably for everybody in this room, and a large majority of the people listening, I would imagine, I mean, having that hate-fueled fuel, or what am I trying to say?
Hate-fueled fuel.
Hate-fueled fuel. That's what I'm trying to say. That hate-fueled fuel. It works sometimes, right? And I think there are people that would argue that's probably not a healthy way to achieve success, but
I think it's how you harness it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, don't do it like vindictively and
Yeah.
We've talked about that on both ends of the spectrum, though, and people that were looking to make a jump into maybe another business out of a comfortable space. Maybe their parents or somebody that was a mentor in their life told them, you should stay put where you're at and don't make that jump. Don't make that leap. And sometimes that can be that negative, but they're trying to do it in a positive way. That can be that fuel too, that motivation that you need to make the jump.
That's right. Or maybe they didn't make the leap and you saw that and you always wondered why. What stopped you? Maybe you saw them living in a comfort zone and you were, I study a lot of I read a lot, I study a lot of what you would consider successful people, well-known people. And through that, there's not a one of them that didn't take a risk, not a one. And so that calculated with me early on. I'm probably never going to reach what I consider my full potential without taking a risk.
Absolutely.
And, that's probably the first piece of advice I give anybody. You're going to have to take a risk. You're going to fail sometimes. It's okay.
Yeah. So talking about failure, or have you at this point in your life or in your business felt like you have failed? Like, talk to about an actual failure that you faced.
Oh man, I've failed a lot. I would, and there's so many ways to define failure. But I can tell you early on in my sales career, when I was at Farrell Calhoun, I used to be referred to by the owner of the company as an anomaly. He used to say that a lot to me and it would aggravate me to death, but I would hold people to a standard. And they would eventually get tired of being held to that standard and they would complain about it. And one day I talked to him on the phone and I said, I'm not asking him to do anything I wouldn't do. And he said to me, Jim, you're an anomaly. You can't expect everybody to be like you. And in a way, he was right. Some people aren't built that way. And I'm not saying they're not better or worse than me or anything like that. But one thing I learned was people aren't cookie cutters and you can't expect them all to step up to your standard. And what I mean by that is working like I work, hustling like I hustle. Some people just aren't going to do that. These are what was my life, and even though I didn't own that company, if you didn't know I didn't own it, you thought I owned it. I had so many people when I retired from Farrell Calhoun tell me, you didn't own Farrell Calhoun? And that was a huge compliment because I treated it that way. I treated it like I owned it. So yeah, that was something that I had to learn, and that was how to manage people that are different and get their best potential out of them by realizing how to do that, realizing where their standard was. And I had a big failure. I almost had, I had a lot of guys complain about my management style early on, and I wasn't like Hitler. I mean, I wasn't going, but I expected certain things that I just weren't going to get out of some people.
That was probably a hard lesson to learn earlier on.
Yeah, it was, because I felt like I was right. I was younger, and I'm like, look, I'm just asking him to do anything I would do. But in the end, the owner of that company was right. And he had the experience of 200 other employees, and that I didn't. And he was correct, and I learned that lesson, and I became a better manager and supervisor because of it.
Yeah, I had a very, very similar experience in my first company command in the National Guard. I was really young. I took command at 26. So I was 26. I was a commander. I think I was one of the younger commanders in the state. And I had some lieutenants that were underneath me, really, really smart guys. 3 of the best lieutenants I've ever had. I mean, I would argue 3 of the best lieutenants in the Louisiana National Guard, like studs, absolute studs. But they all had different management styles than I did, and they all had different motivators than I did, and they all did things a little bit differently than me. But I was too blinded by what I would have done or the way I wanted things, and I was so hard on those lieutenants that I'm pretty sure one of them actually physically hates me. The other 2 were a little bit more resilient, and they were kind of able to shake it off. But I was tough on those dudes. I was too tough on them. And whenever I went into my second command, 3 or 4 years later, I was able to take that lesson that I had learned from running those dudes in the dirt and treating them like shit. And I learned how not to lead a company, and had a lot more success in the second one than I did in the first one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a huge lesson, and something that people don't put, in my opinion, maybe don't put enough importance on, the ability to manage people up to, you want to get their best out of them, but their best may be different than your best.
That's right.
And so it's recognizing their limitations. That's probably the best way to put it. Recognize their limitations and just hold them to that. Hold them to their best of their best, which may not be your best.
Right. And their best might be better than your best in certain areas. You know
Possibly,
what I'm saying?
I mean,
it's not that they're less capable than you. They're just different. Their leadership style is different.
Yes.
Their management style is different, and you have to allow people the freedom to be successful in their own way.
Some people have to be praised. Some people have to be yelled at. Everybody motivates differently.
Being a coach for me, and then having the military background as well, and having some leadership roles throughout my life and careers, that's taught me. I probably learned it maybe around the same age as Justin, but pulling those things, how I would approach Garrison, or how would I approach Jim, or how would I approach Justin, I know, and I learned that earlier on. It's all going to be different, because that's how I'm going to extract the best work out of those guys.
Right.
If I was to be, tasking them with any type of things.
Yeah, and I do want to say just really fast, because we had talked earlier about y'all came in and did a podcast, and it goes back to that anomaly thing. When y'all came in to do your podcast, man, I knew right away, hustlers spot hustlers pretty fast, and I'm like, holy cow, these guys are just like me. I mean, this is crazy. And so I can't tell you the pleasure it is to work around people and partner with people that are of the same thought process, because I don't feel so weird.
Yeah. No, when you're cut from the same type of cloth, whether you have different viewpoints, but when you're in that collective room of people that are cut from that type of cloth, it almost inspires you. Like, we can sit round table and just talk talk about shit about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Real, recognize real.
That's right. That's right.
Reading your questionnaire that we send out, I liked your definition of success. So work hard, set goals, learn from failure, take chances, own your mistakes, stay humble, and ask a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So that is a collective set of traits that you say define success for you in your eyes.
Yes, 100%. Humility is very important, and it's hard to harness when you find success. We all want to be proud of ourselves. We all love to look. If you work out, I mean, you look in the mirror and you flex some guns, and you're like, oh yeah, I look a little bigger today, and it's motivation for you to get up tomorrow and work out again and all those sorts of things. But you have to stay humble with it. It's no different in business. When you see success, you have to remember that it's not just you. In my case, I have a team of people that help me. The Tiffany Seacar, shout out, Total Hustler. Man, she's got like 200 businesses. I mean, she's all over the place, never stops. And it's someone that I fully 100% trust with anything. I credit her with a lot of the stuff that I'm not very good at, that she's good at. And you have to humble yourself to realize there's things that you're just not good at, or, you don't want to fool with. And it's important to humble yourself and then find that person that's good at that and kind of allow them to do it. So humility is very important. But more than anything, for me, it's always been the work ethic. That's probably my biggest thing that I ever saw any success with, was I just was going to outwork the heck out of everybody until I made it happen, whatever it was.
So talking with a lot of our guests so far is opened my eyes. Do you see success more as a destination, or is it an internal feeling that it gives you? Because that's a new question that I feel like I'm having to ask, because I'm finding it more. Some people are more about the destination of their goal setting at the end, and some are about the feeling going through it that it's given them internally. So where would you say yours falls at?
The other night I was thinking about this, and this is the scary thing about being, in my mind anyway, I will probably never feel fully accomplished ever in my life. That I'll always be climbing that mountain. And it's good in a way, because I'll never stop. I'll never stop trying to climb to the top of that. But if I was Elon Musk, I don't think I would be 100% satisfied with where I'm at.
You're climbing to the top of something there's no top of.
There's no top of.
No
yes, exactly. And it's almost a sad thing when you sit back and think about it. But every time I hit a goal, it's like I knock myself down 3 rungs because I keep setting these higher goals. I get pleasure out of anything I achieve. And I feel good about it, and it pushes me to keep going. But I don't know that I will ever reach that point where I'm like, okay, I've done it. I don't think I will.
Does having success in your own business and your own personal success, is that as pleasurable to yourself as helping others succeed and helping others reach their goals? And I mean,
that's a good question. And I'll tell you, if you would have asked me this before I got involved in y'all's podcast, I'd probably say, seeing pleasure in my podcast obviously brings me the most pleasure, because it's something that I'm doing and right. I'm fully responsible for, along with my team. But I'll tell you what, I almost think I get more pleasure out of seeing y'all get these jumps that you've been getting, like in your analytics and stuff like that, because we all started out at 0 with that together. And I was telling Justin this the other day. It's when people are all in with you and they want it as bad as you do, it makes it fun, man. It just makes it fun.
Yeah, it's a race at that point.
Yeah,
you know what I
and
mean?
it's just fun, and there's no amount of time that would be too much time to invest in something like that, in my opinion. So I check y'all's analytics more than mine. And so I guess in a way that makes me happy. As a matter of fact, the other day I'm like, man, I'm having so much fun producing for them and the stuff I do for Real Crime that, I need to make sure that my show don't slip here. But the fortunate thing is, my show has been more of a blessing than I could have ever asked for. And we keep pumping them out and doing our weekly show. But, I would say it's 50-50 or higher in the production side of things for me right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You wrote something in your questionnaire that we're going to call straight bullshit on. And we're going to dig it out.
All right.
You said there's never been a time in your life where you felt like you wanted to quit.
Never.
Talk about it.
And I thought about that question because I thought straight bullshit when I wrote it. I'm like, no, come on, Jim.
Chase wrote bullshit on the paper.
I can tell you, and I even thought back to like high school days and football and things. And come on, when you were running sprints, you never felt like, when I think of quit, when you wrote that question, the first thing I thought of was, have I ever given up on myself? Never. Never in my life have I ever thought I couldn't do something or I ever felt like quitting something. Now, I've done jobs like, in college, I was pipe fitter and was going out and doing that in 120-degree heat and grinding on pipe and things. And I'm like, man, take me to the gate, that kind of thing. But that's a little different. When I think of that question, I think, have I ever quit on myself? Done something that I thought was too hard and just gave up on it? No.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good point. I'm glad you mentioned that because I think a lot of people misunderstand exactly what you understood with that question. There's a big difference in quitting something because you don't think that's what you should be doing, or quitting something because you don't enjoy it, or quitting something because there's a more important thing you need to shift your focus to. That's not quitting. What you just said is quitting. Whenever you give up on yourself, that's quitting.
Yeah, I've never thought I couldn't do something. Sometimes to my detriment. I've made some bad decisions in life because
You didn't quit.
I didn't quit and probably should have. So it goes both ways. But man, I searched for a time where I was like, where was a time in my life where I kind of quit on myself and gave up belief in myself? I don't know if it's weird or what, man, but I can't come up with one single time that I quit on myself.
So you mentioned a couple of times that you've never not believed in yourself. Where did that mindset come from? Because I know for myself, my family, specifically my mom, she's always instilled in me that you can do anything that you put your mind to and don't ever not believe that. So where did that come from for you?
For me, I think it was kind of the opposite. I think that it was because I felt like I was the only one that could rely on me in some cases. And so in my mind, if I don't think I can do it, no one's going to think I can do it. It goes back to that chip on that shoulder. I've always felt like I had to prove something. And I know what people are thinking and listening out there. They're like, man, what a sad life. No, I'm happy. That is the fuel for me. But I've always, since I was young, man, I felt like I had to prove that I can hang, that I was good enough, that, I had the capability to do anything. I think some of my motivation came from books. I've always been a reader of self-motivating books, and from an early age, listening to people that have seen success and kind of taking from them what I could, and hanging around people that were successful people and learning from them. I say this a lot, but smart people learn from their mistakes. Wise people learn from other people's mistakes. And I would kind of do that. I would see someone else make a mistake, and I would say, yeah, I don't want to do that, because I made a lot of them. Look, before I was 25, I was wild. I did dumb things all the time. I didn't rob banks or nothing, but I mean, I did stupid stuff that you do when you're at that age. And I was no angel by any means, but I was always good at kind of looking at other people and not copying what they did because of the result that I saw.
Right.
Can you think of anything that happened early in your life that gave you that need to prove yourself?
I could pinpoint it. Childhood wasn't the easiest for me in a lot of ways. Without going into too much detail on it, it just was a time where I felt almost invisible sometimes. And so in order for me to stand out, I was like the dog that you feed the treat to. In order to stand out, I had to do something really good. And so I think a lot of that motivation early on in my life was, the only way I'm going to get any attention here is to do something nobody thought I could do. And that way I'm going to get rewarded by getting attention. And I think that carried on into adulthood. And you know, no matter how many people surround you that love you, you know, I have a wife that, gosh, man, she loves me regardless of all of my faults, you know, and I've got faults, tons of them, loves me anyway. And I would never doubt that and have never doubted that. But even with that, you know, we've been married 24 years. I still feel like I got to prove something to her. And I guess that's a good thing because, you know, I'm constantly trying to go above and beyond to do that. But I don't technically. I mean, she definitely doesn't have that mindset, but I have that mindset that she has that mindset.
She probably appreciates it though.
Oh, I'm sure she's not complaining, but.
So touching on this a little more, because it would be a question I think that I would ask myself, because a lot of what you're saying really holds true to me, I think, as well. You know, you wanted to prove something to someone else, you know, that chip.
Yeah.
Did it ever change and grab a different direction? Because mine did. I felt like I had to prove to someone else my worth. So now that's kind of left my character traits, and now I want to prove to myself.
Yeah.
That's a full focus for me. I'm not worried about. I've actually give no shits about the other people now, about what they think of me and how they view me. It's more of I'm doing this for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I have other inspiration that
Sure.
I'm doing it for too.
Yeah,
but
your family.
More now it's like I want to do this because I know that I can do it, not because I'm trying to prove it. I'm trying to prove it to myself instead of someone else.
Yeah.
Did that change a gear for you, or is it still the other way?
I think it's still the other way with me. And if I'm being honest, because I know I can do it myself. This is just me. It's a weird mental mindset, but I really don't have that piece to my brain that thinks anything is impossible or anything can't be done. And so I've never had that. That's the crazy thing. I've never not believed in myself. And I guess from having a little bit of success of things, and, you know, even in my business with selling paint, there were accounts, national accounts, that a family-owned paint company had no business getting, honestly. No business. And I would get them. And it would blow everybody's mind. But to me, I always knew I was going to get them. There was no doubt. I just did. I had that self-confidence I had. No one was able to take that from me. Because I believed, if I believe in myself, that's all that really matters. But yeah, I still have that thing that, every time I accomplish something, there's a kind of a, see, I told you I could do that. You know, I don't know, man. I don't know if that'll ever leave me. And I'm a super happy guy, and everybody that knows me knows that. So it's not something that depresses me at night or anything. It's something that I choose to motivate me.
That's interesting. So I think people would probably argue that could be a bad thing, but it doesn't always have to be, right? Sometimes if you got people in your life that you just want to prove wrong, then by God, prove them wrong. Do it. I mean, if that's your motivation, then go out there and prove them wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, people, you say all the time, you know, you need to let that go. You need to have a conversation with that person. You need to, and maybe that is the healthier thing to do. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist or anything, but I'm a happy guy. I don't walk around. I don't walk around with a great depression or anything over anything that I've experienced in my life, one way or the other. What I do is I choose to look at it and say, well, had that not happened, I wouldn't be like this.
Is that why you always wear black, because you're going to your naysayer's funeral?
Maybe. I've never thought of it that way. But man, it could be.
So let's talk about something weird. You talk to yourself a lot.
Yes, I do. I have whole conversations.
Talk to me about you talking to yourself.
Yeah. Boy, they're going to think I'm crazy after this. Jim Chapman's nuts.
Yeah, you made a mistake here, Jim.
Yeah. Well, and you know, I think that's just from me hashing out things in my head. So I'm always someone that looks like 5 steps ahead. Always kind of been that way. I look at and I think it comes from my sales career. I cross like 5 different scenarios of what could happen, no matter what it is in life. And I say, okay, if this happens, I'm going to do this. If this happens, I'm going to do this. But I'll sit there and like have a conversation with myself, and I'm like, and I'll go through that scenario as if I'm talking to someone. And I used to do it a lot with sales. Like when I would cold call on a specific customer, I would have like the whole conversation with myself, and then how they would answer, and then how I would answer if they would answer. I'm weird. I know I'm weird. But maybe I'm not the only one that does that. I don't know.
You're not.
I
do it too.
knew that this answer
this
was
is
coming. I knew it.
It's so funny because there was another thing that you wrote in there about making lists, and Chase wrote he's an asshole. So Chase made the like little cheat sheet that we used on his own last night without talking to anybody else about it. But you talk about making lists, right? And he wrote in parentheses, "This may be Justin's cousin." It's on the paper right here. So it's so funny that you said that, because I do the same thing. I make a list, and if my list gets messed up, then I get like mentally messed up. And it's not like it doesn't stop me from moving forward, but if I have things on a list that I'm not able to get checked off, it like throws me off, and I got to like rework the list, and it's just, I don't know, it's weird.
I'll tell you, look, for 25 years, I had the same clipboard. I would have this clipboard that I kept in my car. Every night, I would go home and I would make a list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and all the things I had to do, say, the next day. And, you know, call on this customer, bring paint to this customer. And I would have 4 or 5 things on there that I wanted to accomplish that I hadn't done professionally. And I would line them off as I did them. And if I didn't get to one, I would move it to the next day and move it to the next day.
That's exactly what I do.
But I would be totally lost without that clipboard. And look, my success for 25 years, if anybody asked me how I was so successful from a service standpoint of being a rep, that was it. That list is probably 90% of it, because it kept me on point.
I use check boxes. So instead of doing the line out, I just do a little square box and I write what I got to write. And then everything that's not checked off, the next day, whenever I flip the page, whatever's not checked off goes at the top of the next page. Yeah. And then I flip the page and then I'm done. I'll fold the page in half. Usually I like the top spiral bound top notebooks.
Yeah.
That's my
I like
jam.
those too. Yeah.
So I'll write on that. And then when I'm finished, I'll fold the page in half and flip it over.
Yeah. I still do it to this day. It's just in producing and podcasting now, but I'll have Hustle Makes It Happen, upload episode, edit episode, whatever I got to do, keep going.
Yeah, and there's a lot of satisfaction.
I'm not a list guy.
There's a lot for me.
Mental list. Keep
that
it in my
explains
head.
a lot. But I find a lot of like success. I find a lot of happiness in checking things off the list too.
Yeah.
Like the physical action of checking things off the list.
Well, it makes you feel accomplished.
That's right.
And but the bad side of that is when you don't have a whole lot checked off, then you get mad at yourself.
Yeah.
You're like, what did I do today?
Yeah. If I have to write a bunch of stuff from the previous day on the next day's list, it means that I didn't plan well. I didn't plan well enough for that day. I wasn't able to get all the things that I wanted to accomplish. So I need to look at how I'm planning or scheduling my days, right? Andy Frisella talks about that a lot in his podcast too. He limits you to 5 things on your list. You cannot write more than 5 things on your list.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he said if it's
overwhelm you.
Yeah, he said if you're not going to do it today, don't write it down today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And talking about lists and things that get in your way, I like. Let's talk about obstacles when they come at you. What are you doing?
Yeah. So and they constantly come at me now, things that will get in the way, don't work. Something doesn't work the way you thought it would work. And I think with obstacles, the best thing you can do to overcome them is to kind of think ahead. Try to see as many obstacles as you can before they happen. Proactivity is way better than reactivity. I would much prefer to be proactive than reactive. So you have to kind of foresee problems before they occur and have somewhat of a solution in your head. Now, that won't work every time. Sometimes you will have issues that come up you never saw coming. Those are things you learn from. Those are, challenges that you learn from. They're not necessarily failures. I hate the word failure. I like the word challenge. But really being proactive and trying to foresee an obstacle is the best way to overcome it. And if you don't see it, just treat it as a challenge. Treat it, find the solution. There's a solution to every single issue that can come up, and it's never as big as you think it is in your head. You just gotta be as cognizant as possible that there's always a solution, and then try to foresee those problems that could happen. You can avoid most of them if you see them and take the steps that are needing to be taken before they happen. And sometimes it'll just happen. I've lost episodes of podcasts before because I didn't upload them to iCloud. I just left them on a hard drive, and then the hard drive crashed, and 5 episodes of a podcast disappear, and there's no way to recover them. And that's something that I knew better, because you can't rely on machines. So I learned upload them to iCloud every single time. And so sometimes you're just going to have them, and now obstacles of people are different. Sometimes people will become an obstacle in your life in one way or another. Maybe it's a naysayer. Maybe it's someone that's a Debbie Downer. Choose to hang around positive people. I cannot stress enough that any success that I've seen in life was because of the people I chose to hang out with were positive and not negative. Negative will kill you. It will kill your spirit, man.
I can attest to that. That's so true.
It will kill your spirit.
I've cut more cords in the last 5 years because of the negative energy that it has brought and drained in my life. And it's not that I hold any. They don't hold a weird place in my heart in a bad way. It's just I got to cut that cord.
Yeah, you have to, because you become what you hang around. You become what you hear. Negativity will stop you from producing. It will stop it. Negativity in a company will absolutely kill a company. And there's always one, right? There's always one person that just is a Debbie Downer, or just always got a problem.
That's all it takes.
Yeah, it's all it takes.
That's all it takes is one person.
Got to surround yourself with positive people equal positive results.
No doubt, Jim. Look, I hate to extinguish fire. Right, I'm not a firefighter. I hate to put out fire, but we're breaking the 60-minute mark.
I hear you.
Which tells me that we need to do some follow up.
Yeah, I'd love to follow up anytime.
Yeah, we need to do some follow up for sure. But we got some hustling to do on the back end of this that we got to get to.
Yes.
Man, this is I loved how this episode went.
Yeah, and totally off page, which is awesome.
Yeah, I love not following the script where just things just flow and it's totally unscripted. That one went very well.
Got another one in us.
Yeah, well,
looking forward to it.
I'll tell you, I was honored to come on. It was fun. Y'all are, and I do want to say, y'all are just rocking it with your podcast. Keep it up. I'm not only someone that is involved in the podcast, but I'm also a fan. I'd watch y'all even if I didn't know you. Y'all do great work. So thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming.
Man. Take a few minutes, plug your stuff, tell everybody where they can find you and your show.
Yeah, so Local Leaders of the Podcast. You can check us out on YouTube at Local Leaders of the Podcast, Facebook, Instagram. All you got to do is search us in the search bar. We'll pop up. Our website is localleadersthepodcast.com. We talk to small businesses often on this podcast, and we try to get their story out. We believe that every business owner has a story. We want to tell it, and through that, hopefully, people will see that passion and want to do business with them. So we'd love to talk to anyone.
Awesome. Chase, any last thoughts?
Yeah, so we've been getting some great feedback from all of our listeners and viewers. Keep it coming, please. It motivates us every single day when we discuss this roundtable about what we need to do, some of the stories that have struck a nerve or a chord with you guys in a great way. Keep sending the feedback. Send us the hustlers. We've been getting some great people that you want to have on the show, so we've been doing our research. Don't think that we're sitting dormant, not following up on these people that you're sending us. This was a great episode. I hope that you're taking from the things that we're taking from this. We're building our own roadmap to success. Every time that a guest comes on the show, I hope you're doing the same thing.
That's it, man. Iron sharpens iron every time. Garrison, last thoughts?
No, that y'all covered it. Thanks for coming, Jim. Looking
Yeah,
forward to
hey,
having you
man.
on another one.
Enjoyed it.
It's good to have you on this side of the camera.
Yes, sir.
A little weird, huh?
Yeah, it is.
A little
different. It's different.
As you all know, we're all weird now.
Very good.
All right, guys, that's it. That's another episode of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast. Jim told me not to do this twice, but I'm doing it twice. If you get value out of the show, please share it with your friends. The only way we're going to grow the show and be able to reach as many people as possible is with your help. Help us grow. Share the show. All of our social media links are in the video description on YouTube and in the podcast description on whatever podcast platform you're using. Scroll down. All our social links are there.
I was just making sure you were saying the right things.
Did I say something wrong?
Nope.
All right. If you're going to help us grow, share the show. That's it, guys. That's it. Thanks for watching. Remember, until next time, keep your head down, keep your eye on the ball. Hustle makes it happen. But most importantly, have fun. Out of here.